Hello and welcome to the Dream Team Professor podcast. My name is Scott and in this episode we're looking at the top players to target in Game Week 31 Sun Dream Team. Now as always we're going to start off with the fixture ticker from ffstuff.co.uk. We're going to look at the fixtures for this game week and then the next couple of game weeks. A bit later in the episode we're also going to look at the best players to target from each team. And then at the end we're going to have the top captain picks for Game Week 31. So it's Game Week 31. The deadline is Saturday, the 13th of April at 11:30 a.m. We've got a 12:30 kickoff, which is Newcastle versus Spurs. Myself and the guys from the Dream Team Tonic podcast are going to be doing another deadline stream. They've been really fun lately. That's going to be at 10:30 a.m. over on YouTube on the Dream Team Tonic channel. So do go over and give them a follow. So Game Week 31 is another European double game week. So exactly the same teams that doubled this week are going to double in Game Week 31. We've got Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa and West Ham all taking part in their European second legs. We're recording this episode, by the way, on Thursday evening, just after with the West Ham match and the Liverpool matches. So quite eventful. It has affected our plans a little bit. So like I said, deadline 11:30 a.m. on Saturday. European double game week. So we start with City. It's a home double. You've got Luton and then Real Madrid, both at home. The Luton game is going to be a little bit of a worry. So with a 3-3 draw, all to play for still in that second leg, there will be a little bit of a worry with rotation in this Luton match. I don't know whether or not we'll get any leaks going into this one. So it will be a tough one. And then we've got a few question marks at the minute as well over the fitness of KDB and Foden. So that is going to be a tricky one. We'll break that down in a later slide. Arsenal, Villa at home and then Bayern Munich away. Obviously that Villa home match is going to be a tough one in the Premier League and another draw in the Champions League. Tuesday night I was at that game. Very stressful experience but an enjoyable one still. But that is going to be some second leg next week. So away at Bayern Munich. Again, I don't think that Arsenal will be able to rotate like Man City. Obviously, Man City playing Luton, they should be able to rotate and get away with it in that fixture. I don't think that Arsenal sort of have that luxury to rotate against Aston Villa, especially with the title race being so close. So, tough game week, but I think we can probably expect full strength from Arsenal in both legs. Liverpool, probably the best looking double, but it might not feel it so much after the result today. Liverpool losing 3-0 at home to Atalanta. So Crystal Palace at home, Atalanta away in the second leg. Obviously, there's going to be question marks now how Liverpool approach that second leg. Do they go strong? Do they go all out and try and all out attack, sort of turn around the result? Or do they kind of just maybe consider that it's done? That doesn't feel very Liverpool to me though. Villa, away double. Could be a difficult one, like I said. Arsenal away from home and then Lille away from home. So double away legs. But a decent result against Lille. And Ollie Watkins is back and in decent form. So we'll be mentioning him in a later slide as well. And then West Ham, a home double, but a disappointing result against Leverkusen this evening. So it's Fulham at home in the first game, Bayer Leverkusen at home in the second one. And they've done so well for so long, but lost it right at the end. 2-0 down against Leverkusen. And quite a lot of suspensions for that second leg. As single game weeks go, I think United probably have one of the better looking fixtures. They're in okay form at the minute. They had that 2-2 draw against Liverpool. They are away at Bournemouth. But the reason I'm mentioning them is because it is the start of a nicer looking fixture run for Manchester United. So Bournemouth away, but then in 32 they double with Coventry in that FA Cup match, and then Sheffield United at home. And then 33 is just a single, but it's Burnley at home as well. So this could be an okay chance to maybe jump on to Manchester United. Chelsea, it's a home fixture against Everton. They double in game week 32 and then they double in game week 33. So if you did want to go for Chelsea, they do have the upcoming fixtures, but it is just a single this game week. A lot of people might still be holding Cole Palmer or be considering him bringing him back. So one to look out for with Chelsea. And then this is a bit of a wild card. Really is quite punty. Brentford versus Sheffield United at home. followed by quite a nice fixture run, but there are no doubles, so you are putting yourself at a disadvantage with fixtures. It might just be one that you want to look at if you're in mini leagues, targeting mini leagues. They've got Sheffield United at home, Luton away, and then Everton away from home. But like I said, it is punty, and you're at a bit of a disadvantage longer term. But we will go on to fixture volume now on this next slide. Right, so looking at fixture volume for game week 31 to game week 32. So just the 2 game weeks I'm going to look at. And the reason why is I normally look over 3 game weeks. But in game week 33, there's still fixtures that could be added. So in game week 33, currently you have Chelsea and Spurs with double game weeks. But there could be European semis, or there will be European semis, providing that the English teams get through, put into that game week 33. So any team that progress from their quarterfinals will have their first leg put in that game week 33. So I don't really think it's helpful to sort of count how many fixtures there are currently, because they could still be added. So we're going to look at 31 to 32. There are just 3 teams that have 4 fixtures across these 2 game weeks. So you've got Manchester City facing Luton at home, Real Madrid at home, followed by Chelsea in the FA Cup, and then Brighton away from home. Arsenal have Aston Villa at home, Bayern Munich away, followed by a double game week of Wolves away and Chelsea at home, both in the Premier League. And then Liverpool, Crystal Palace at home, Atalanta away in the Europa League, and then an away double game week in the Premier League of Fulham and Everton. So they're the 3 teams that will be playing two fixtures in game week 31 and game week 32. Then we have a number of teams with 3 fixtures. So we've got Manchester United, Villa, Chelsea, and West Ham. These all have, I think, decent looking fixtures across this. So Manchester United have got Bournemouth away, Coventry, Sheffield United. Aston Villa have Arsenal and Lille in the away double, followed by Bournemouth, which looks okay. Chelsea have Everton at home, but then a tough double game week of Manchester City away, Arsenal away. And then West Ham, they have Fulham at home, by Leverkusen at home, with Crystal Palace in a single in game week 32. So I quite like those teams still with the 3 fixtures. And then there's a few other fixtures, a few other teams that I don't like as much. So you've got Palace, Wolves, Bournemouth, Sheffield United and Everton. These teams have 3 fixtures, but I'm not convinced that they are worth targeting at the moment. All other teams have 4 fixtures, apart from Spurs, who just have the 1, and that's because they have a blank game week in game week 32. So you'll want to make sure if you've got any Spurs players, they're not in your team for game week 32. Right, we'll start with Manchester City. So they had the 4-2 win against Crystal Palace starting last weekend, and then the 3-3 draw with Real Madrid away from home. Really exciting game of football, or night of football. I just don't understand why both of those games had to be on at the same time. I would have quite enjoyed watching that one, but obviously was at the Arsenal game. Kevin De Bruyne kicked off the game week with a 20-pointer against Palace. So anyone that brought Kevin De Bruyne in for that first fixture, well done to you guys, because he absolutely smashed it. But then he was missing from the Real Madrid game with illness. Didn't come off the bench, was apparently sick, thought it could have been food poisoning or something. They were a bit concerned about the rest of the team potentially having it, but it was just him. There are question marks now, though. Will he be okay for Luton, or will they just rest him and have him ready for Real Madrid? That is going to be a tough decision. 2 goals, 1 assist in that Crystal Palace match. He hit tackle points, and that's 18 returns from his last 15 matches, or his only 15 matches this season. 4 goals, 14 assists for the season. And so he is someone that, if I knew that he would be starting that Luton game, I would be tempted to have him in, especially with 2 home games as well. Phil Foden, unused sub in that Crystal Palace match, so it was time for his rest. But then he grabbed a goal and had 2 shots on target with 9 points against Real Madrid. 21 goals, 11 assists for the season, and he's now the highest scoring player on the game. Really, really impressive from Foden. Just shooting on sight, just so many great goals this season as well. He's been really, really impressive. But he got a knock at the end of the Real Madrid game and had to go off. The latest from Pep was he got a bad dead leg at the end. But there is time to recover before the next games. So hopefully Phil Foden will be okay for that Luton match. I can't imagine that he would get a rest. It would only be if he was injured. I guess a lot is going to come down to this game week, whether it's going to be either Foden or De Bruyne starting that Luton game, or could they both start it? But I mean, if they both start it, you're going to want both in your team. But it is going to be hard to try and pick which one will start it if it's going to be just one of them. We'll keep an eye out for leaks. We'll be doing the deadline stream, but again, it isn't the early kickoff, this one. So I'm not fully convinced that we'll be able to find anything out. Game week 31, that is a 3 o'clock kickoff though on Saturday, so maybe, just maybe, we'll get a bit of team news and it'll make our decision easier. But if Foden or De Bruyne are available for that Luton game, I will want them in my team. That is the game where Haaland scored 5 goals against Luton last, and I think De Bruyne got maybe a hat-trick of assists in that one as well. So yeah, that is a fixture we're going to want these players for. Haaland, 10 points against Palace for a goal, but just 1 shot on target against Real Madrid, 4 points. But he's on 30 goals, 8 assists for the season now. He got his rest 2 games ago against Villa, so I can't really see that he'd be rested for that Luton game. All I do think is that if they go quite far ahead in that Luton game, maybe he could get an early sub with Real Madrid in mind. But overall, I still think that Haaland will start Luton. And currently, that is who my captain's armband is on, Erling Haaland. A few differentials maybe from Manchester City. So you have got Rodri. He started 8 consecutive matches now with a 5.6 average. 8 goals, 12 assists. But there was a little comment after the game where he sort of insinuated that he may need a rest soon as he's played a lot of games. So I'm saying that 8 consecutive games is sort of a pro to Rodri, but maybe that does mean that he could have a rest coming his way. Bernardo Silva started 5 of City's last 6 matches, and he's the second highest scorer for Manchester City over the last 4 game weeks with 39 points, 10 goals and 5 assists. So Bernardo has really turned it on at this key point of the season. When it comes to defence, it's a little bit tough with Man City at the minute. They've got a lot of injuries, which actually does make it a little bit easier to choose from the players. But we just don't know when certain players are going to come back. So Diaz, Stones and Vardiol both started back-to-back games. So they started the Palace fixture and the Real Madrid fixture. Vardiol did go off early, injured in the Crystal Palace game, but came back for the Real Madrid one. Vardiol scored a great long-range goal against Real Madrid. So he's probably looking the best option out of these 3. He's the highest scoring City defender over the last 4 game weeks as well. So it is reflected over the last few weeks, not just because he scored a screamer. But Diaz and Stones still look quite good. But there keeps being comments about Stones also still carrying a little bit of an injury, a bit of tightness after that Real Madrid game. So I think if I was going to pick from one of them, it would still be Diaz or Vardiol. Vardiol just seems to be a little bit better at getting bonus lately. I'd expect Rico Lewis probably does come in at right back for that Luton match, and you'll probably see a Kanji come in, but these two only got the 1 game last game week. In goal, Ortega started both matches this week, which was a big surprise. I decided to move on Ederson this week because I was just sick of not knowing. We didn't get any leaks, and Ortega did go on to start both, which was a big surprise with Ederson on the bench in both. I wouldn't be confident enough to bring Ortega into my team, but I think I probably would have lack of confidence with Ederson enough to make me want to move Ederson on. So currently, I think too many question marks around the goalkeeper position for City, so I probably just wouldn't bother. On to my team, Arsenal. So a bit of a mixed week. A 3-0 win against Brighton away from home, making it 4 clean sheets in a row. That was a really, really impressive victory. But then the 2-2 draw against Bayern, I think it was a fair result, but slightly disappointing from an Arsenal perspective. The mistakes really did cost us in that game. I think we were kind of our own worst enemy a little bit. So probably a fair result. I'm not feeling that confident going away from home against Bayern Munich in a one-off game, but anything can happen. It is a tough game week though. Villa at home and then Bayern away. And then game week 32, Wolves away, Chelsea home, and in game week 33, we've got Spurs in that away match, and it could potentially be followed by a semi-final against either Manchester City or Real Madrid, so doesn't get much tougher than this run for Arsenal. Bukayo Saka, definitely struggling with an injury or knock, hobbling around in that second half again. Really does seem like he's struggling with something at the minute. I'll be honest, I didn't think that it was a penalty in that Bayern Munich game. I was right behind the goal where it took place. And of course I was shouting for it at the time. Of course I thought it was. I was looking up to see if there was a VAR check or something going on, and did feel quite hard done by. But when I did get back on the train and start watching the highlights, watching the replays, I did think that he looked like he sort of instigated the contact. So I think it was the right decision. Still managed 2 starts regardless of these limping off the pitch scenarios, and scored a goal in both games. So I still think that if you've got Bukayo Saka, you hold him. I still think I'd consider bringing him in if I didn't have him already. 10 points against Brighton, 1 bonus, and 11 points against Bayern, 3 bonus. Really good form still. Had his rest against Luton. I just can't see a scenario that we rest Saka unless he is fully injured. I don't think we can afford to rest him for Aston Villa at home. Wolves, Chelsea, Spurs, and then if there's another European fixture, I just cannot see it. I think we're going to play Saka all season long, and then hopefully he's just fit enough for the Euros later on. If I'm looking for a second attacking option from Arsenal, probably be either Kai Havertz or Ødegaard. Kai Havertz, down as a midfielder, got 12 points and a goal and an assist against Brighton. That takes him to 10 goals, 7 assists for the season. But he did blank against Bayern Munich, but obviously a much tougher game. 12 consecutive starts, so I don't think you have to be too worried about his minutes. Gabriel Jesus is back, but he has been playing on the wing. Ødegaard, he's got 11 points this game week without any attacking returns. Seems to be doing pretty well for bonus. Got bonus in both matches this week. Tackle points, big chances created, and shot on target points. So one thing I would say is with Bukayo Saka hobbling around and getting these injuries, maybe if he does go off early in any game, Ødegaard might be the guy that steps up and takes a penalty if Saka is off the pitch. It's probably a slim chance, but that is a potential scenario. When it comes to Arsenal defence, I think a lot of them are decent, really. Raya, White, Gabriel and Saliba, all decent options. The only bit I'd avoid is that sort of left-back position. We've seen Zinchenko start. We've seen Kivior start in the Bayern Munich game. And a lot of my friends that support Arsenal were calling for Tomiyasu to play the second leg of this Bayern Munich one. So I think that left-back position is up in the air. But all other positions are okay. I'd prioritise Ben White. I've got an assist against Bayern. And he had a massive chance for a 1-on-1 in that game, which he missed, which could have resulted in even more. 11 points for the week for him. 9 points for the week for Gabriel. He got a shot on target against Brighton. I think White and Gabriel probably have the most attacking threat. Saliba, quite a bit less. But yeah, just don't go near that left-back position. Raya, I brought him in this week. Highest scoring goalkeeper over the last 4 game weeks with 30 points. But just 2 of those points came from saves. So all David Raya's points are coming from clean sheets and appearance points. So just something to consider. If he does concede, he probably isn't going to score very many points. On to Liverpool. So they've had a little bit of a wobble this week. A 2-2 draw against United. And then a shock 3-0 loss against Atalanta this evening. Really was a surprising result. It's interesting to see how they're going to approach this second leg now. 3-0 down. Like I said, it doesn't really seem very Liverpool to sort of throw in the towel for the rest of this tie. But they do still have to focus quite heavily on the Premier League. So it will be interesting to see how they approach it. This evening, you had Darwin Núñez, Virgil van Dijk and Kelleher starting out of the sort of popular picks. But big names, Diaz, Salah, Robertson and Conor Bradley all benched for this one. So maybe they did rotate a little bit too much. He had Jota and Trent Alexander-Arnold on the bench as well, which was pretty big news. Jota did come on off the bench, looked okay, but Trent didn't. But Trent being back on the bench now must be worrying a lot of Connor Bradley owners. I'm a Connor Bradley owner, and I will be considering bringing him out for next week. Salah and Nunes, the two highest scoring strikers on the game for the last 4 game weeks. I know Nunes has been frustrating, but he does deliver the points. Didn't really quite do it today, but Salah has 59 points over the last 4 game weeks, and Nunes has 44. Salah got a penalty goal against Man United, 3 shots on target, 1 big chance created. 9 shots on target over the last 3 matches. This was pre-Atalanta. But eventually I feel like he's going to have to score with this many chances. It's unlike Salah to not be that clinical. He's got 4 goals in his last 6 appearances pre-Atalanta. So again, still decent returns, but I just feel like he has got a brace or hat-trick coming. Couldn't really impact the game this evening, but he's on 23 goals, 13 assists for the season. He's top for big chances created and 3rd for shots on target for the season. Definitely a captain pick for this game week 31. It's probably going to be choosing between Haaland and Mohamed Salah. Currently I'm leaning Haaland, but I feel like Crystal Palace at home still looks a decent fixture. And it just depends how they approach that Atalanta away. If they're going all out to try and turn around the result, Salah will play a big part in that. Darwin Núñez, wasteful in that United game, 5 points and an assist. But he does have 18 goals and 18 assists. Most assists of anyone in the game. But he was poor in this Atalanta game again. Wasteful is probably the word. He had a couple one-on-ones that he couldn't put away. And looked like he was subbed off in the 58th minute as well. But he has been given the extra point for playing 60 minutes on Dream Team currently. So we'll see if he gets that taken away. Jota, back. Not one to target at this point for me. But he could potentially eat into Darwin Núñez's minutes. But I'm not too worried because Darwin Núñez, even if he is benched, we see Klopp make these 60th minute substitutions quite a lot. So I still think even if Darwin's benched, he is going to get involved. I am still quite hot on having 2 Liverpool attackers. And the reason is because everyone's got Salah. And just having Salah isn't quite enough. So I think it does help to have an extra Liverpool attacker. I still have Darwin Núñez, but I think Luis Diaz is just as good. So 13 goals, 7 assists for the season. He got another goal in that Man United match. And not including Atalanta this evening, because I made these notes a bit earlier. But he had returned in each of his last 3 matches with 2 goals and an assist. So benched for Atalanta, but previous to that, he has been doing really well. Defence is now tough. There's a lot of options for Liverpool with Trent Alexander-Arnold now back in contention. So Virgil van Dijk, he's fine. He started this European tie. This was his 5th start in a row now. So he's the fine, safe option. He's going to play pretty much every single game. But one thing that was interesting is I had a look and Connor Bradley, Robertson and Gomez have all outscored Virgil van Dijk over the last 4 game weeks. So even though Virgil van Dijk has sort of been playing the most games, he's getting outscored by these sort of fullbacks that do get points for tackles, bonus, chances created, goals, assists. So while he is the most nailed, Virgil van Dijk, currently he hasn't quite been doing it. But I don't think any of the sort of other fullbacks are that pickable at the moment. Maybe Robertson. He's really, really good for bonus, takes some set pieces, but I'm not too big on the other ones. Connor Bradley, I'll consider moving him on now with Trent Alexander-Arnold on the bench and even Gomez starting right back this evening. I think that's too many players fighting it out for the same position. You'll be alright to hold Bradley for probably another couple game weeks. He probably will still play 1 a week while Trent is coming back. But if you have got nothing else to do or no other fires, I think it's probably better to be proactive with that change. Alisson back in training but wasn't on the bench for this European fixture, but I would expect him to be back fairly soon. But again, like Connor Bradley, you probably don't have to rush, because even if Addison does come back for Crystal Palace, Kelleher probably still will get the Atalanta match. So it isn't the end of the world. He will still get some games, but if you're looking for a 2-game weeker, it might not be him. One little thing that I did sort of consider is that Liverpool defence haven't kept a clean sheet in 8 matches now. So maybe it might be time that they stop all this rotation, and maybe we start to see Klopp stick to sort of a similar back four, or just make one change here and there a bit more often. If that is the case, then people like Robertson or Trent or Virgil will be more appealing. But currently there's just a little bit too much rotation for me. On to West Ham. So 2-1 win against Wolves away from home in that first fixture. Decent result. I think that was James Ward-Prowse scoring direct from a corner. And then a 2-0 loss against Leverkusen away from home this evening. A real disappointing one, because they were well in the tie. Even at 1-0, that would have been a decent result to take back. But a late goal made it 2-0, which was really quite disappointing. It feels to me at the minute we're approaching a hop-off point for West Ham players. And they've got a lot of injuries and suspensions coming their way. So, game week 31, Fulham at home, Bayer Leverkusen at home. Game week 32, Crystal Palace away in a Premier League single. And then game week 33, Liverpool at home. And then it could be a European semi-final, but it isn't looking very likely. So, a few squad issues at the minute. So, Bowen didn't make the squad for Leverkusen. He went off with a knee injury in the Premier League fixture. Probably a doubt for Fulham at the weekend. Moyes is unsure of his return date. So we'll probably have to wait and see on that one. Maybe wait for some leaks. But that will be a Sunday fixture. So I'm not that confident we'll have news on West Ham. Probably a sell. As well as the Bowen issue, you've got Paqueta picking up a yellow card this evening, which makes him miss the return leg in Europe. And you also have the same scenario for Emerson. Yellow card, misses the home second leg. So a West Ham without Paqueta, without Emerson, without Bowen, that does really sound quite challenging to me. But hey-ho. But the one glimmer of hope could be Mohamed Kudus. Continues to impress. So 12 points for the game week. Just the 4 against Wolves. He hit one bonus point and tackles. But then 8 points in that loss to Leverkusen. I've got it up on the screen here. So 86 minutes played. 1 shot on target. 5 tackles. Got him an extra 2 points. And then hit that 8 player performance marks just to get him that 3 bonus points. So Kudus owners, including myself, very impressed with how that went. But it is looking a little bit worrying for West Ham going forward. Aston Villa. He's done it again, this Ollie Watkins. He's done it again. So a brace against Brentford after being the most sold player for the last 2 game weeks running due to injury. So he picked up that injury in the Wolves game in game week 29. He missed the Manchester City match, the second match of game week 29, and we didn't really get a concrete update from Emery that he would be available for Brentford. So I think a lot of players still took him out again, and he hit 2 goals and got 14 points in that first game, and then struck again this evening, 9 points against Lille at home. So carries on his impressive run after that little dip in the middle, and this Ollie Watkins graphic I've got on screen just about summarises how my season has been with Ollie Watkins. So you can see the 15-pointer, 11-pointer, 16-pointer. That's the sort of time where if you didn't have Ollie Watkins already, you go, I'm going to have to get him in. And then he goes and drops a 2, the 6 is okay, a 3, a 1, a did not play, and then bang, 14 points, 9 points. Yeah, he's been a tough one for me this season. But 22 goals, 15 assists for the season. Really, really impressive. But definitely has upset a few people this game week. Certainly an option for next game week. Arsenal away from home and then Lille away from home. So probably a tougher game week this week than the previous. But one thing to consider, they've got Douglas Luiz currently suspended for this Arsenal fixture and the Bournemouth fixture in game week 32, which could see Ollie Watkins maybe taking penalties against Arsenal, against Bournemouth in 32. So one pro to maybe bringing Ollie Watkins in if they do get a penalty, which I hope they don't against Arsenal. He could be the one taking it. But you must say on paper, Arsenal away and then the away leg at Lille does look a little bit tough. But I'm going to go on to my captain picks at the end of this episode. Maybe we'll see Ollie Watkins there. Not currently that keen on any other Aston Villa players. Defensively, they conceded again. They're a little bit unreliable at the back. Arsenal does look like a tough game for defence. And then they don't really have that many doubles coming up. So game week 32, they don't have a double. Game week 33, they could have a double if they go through. But one of the games will be Chelsea at home. So I don't think it's the best run of games for them. But Ollie Watkins definitely does look appealing. Then I'm going to go on to a couple single game week players. So Bruno Fernandez. Like I said, I wouldn't normally go for a single game week player. Bournemouth away doesn't look terrible. But Bruno Fernandez is in brilliant form. So 11 points against Liverpool in the last game with that long range strike after a mistake from Kwanzaa and Kelleher being out the goal. But all count, 11 points. 8 points against Chelsea. 9 points against Brentford. 6 points against Liverpool in that FA Cup match. Then he has a string of a couple double figure returns. 10 points against Everton. 6 against City. 11 against Forest. So really, really good run for Bruno Fernandes. And then the way I look at it is if you did get him in game week 31, you'd be just getting him in early ahead of that game week 32 double game week, which looks really good on paper. So Coventry in the FA Cup and then Sheffield United at home, followed by game week 33, Burnley at home. So pretty good singles and then a really good double game week in game week 32. He's the 5th highest scoring midfielder in the game with 252 points. 9.3 average over the last 3 matches, and then a 6.1 average for the season. 5 returns in his last 8 games, 10 goals, 10 assists, and he's on pens. So not a bad single game week player. Or you've got Cole Palmer from Chelsea. They've got a single against Everton, but then they double in 32 and 33. So if you've got him, you probably hold him. But if you haven't, I don't think 31 is a terrible week to get him in for. So you could either wait until 32, 33, or you could get him in early if you don't have him already. So 7.5 average, 19 goals, 15 assists, and another midfielder on penalties. Right, a quick look over the best captain picks for game week 31. I'm going to go with my 3 favourites. So like I said, Haaland is at the top for me at the moment. 2 home fixtures. Luton, Real Madrid. Scored 5 in the previous Luton fixture. Obviously, he's not going to score 5 every time he plays Luton, but Luton at home does look like a nice fixture, really. Question marks over KDB and Foden, I see as a bit of a downside. Obviously, if both were available, or even one's available, I see that as a positive. But one way I could spin it is that if one of them is missing, I think it's really unlikely that they're going to rest Haaland and KDB, for example, or rest Haaland and Foden. Obviously, they can rotate, but the title race is still on. They can't afford any slip-ups. So I expect Haaland to get at least sort of 60 minutes against Luton, and then you'd expect that he plays the full match against Real Madrid. And that Real Madrid game, if it's tight, could end up going to sort of extra time as well. So I think that he's a really, really good option for game week 31. 30 goals, 8 assists for the season, and a 9 average points for the season. Salah, I'm going to put him second. Did have that sort of first half benching against Atalanta, but then came on. Should be safe now for 90 minutes against Palace, I'd assume, just because he had that rest at the start. But he may now be needed. I was a little bit worried when I saw the lineups that, okay, he's probably going to play 90 against Crystal Palace, and then he could be benched again for the Europa League. But 3-0 down, it just depends which way they attack it. If they go all out to try and turn it around, then you'd expect Salah to definitely be starting that second fixture as well. But if they just decide the tie's done, which again I think seems unlikely, he could be benched again. 23 goals, 13 assists for the season with a 7.9 average. For what it's worth, I think he probably does start both. But I just feel like the Manchester City fixtures and Erling Haaland swings it a little bit. And then third, this is more of a differential, I think. But if you're bringing in Ollie Watkins, maybe you could go and captain him as a differential captain pick. Could have pens against Arsenal if he gets one. But obviously, Douglas Luiz will be back for that Lille game, so he wouldn't be taking a penalty in that one, I assume. But tough away double. You have to say that these are worse fixtures than both the Liverpool and the City ones. But 22 goals, 15 assists, and a 6.5 average. If you think that there's a better captain pick for game week 31, or someone that you're going to be going for as a differential, let me know in the comments below. On to my team update for game week 30. So it's a green arrow from 288th to 250th overall. I hit 117 points for the game week, taking me to a total of 3,400. I had Raya in goal. He was one of my transfers in. Got me 9 points for the game week. Brought him in for Edison, who was benched for both. So I'm up there. Virgil van Dijk with just the 2 points. Again, disappointing. For 2 starts, 2 points is really, really poor. Gabriel, 9 points at the back for Arsenal. And then Connor Bradley, 2 points. That Liverpool defence starting to let us down a little bit. Like I said, no clean sheets in 8, I think it was now. Bukayo Saka, despite his limp, has banged in 21 points this game week, a goal in each game and hitting bonus. Still pleased to have held Bukayo Saka. And I'm not overly concerned about the injury issues. I think Luton was a genuine rest. And I think we're just going to play the hell out of him till the end of the season. I think that it's that important. Phil Foden, 9 points. Obviously disappointed that he was rested. It was leaked. I could have took him out, but I decided to stick with him. And 9 points isn't bad against Real Madrid. Kudus continues to impress me with 12 points. I'm going to have a tough decision to make if West Ham do end up going out of the Europa League, but happy to keep him currently. Cole Palmer, 5 points. I kept him for his single against Sheffield United. I thought he should do well in that one. 5 points feels a bit average compared to what he's been hitting lately, but an assist, it just was an early substitution as well, so a bit disappointed, but I think I'm going to keep him with the upcoming doubles. Darwin Núñez was one of my other transfers in this game week, and 8 points from him. It's not a bad return, but if I knew that he was going to be starting 2 matches, I think I probably would have expected a little bit more from him. He came in for Son, and Son scored 5 points this game week. So again, up, but I expected a little bit more. Erling Haaland with 14 points, and then I put the armband on Salah, who got me 26. So I would have been a couple of points better off by putting the armband on Haaland. 50-50 call, I thought, and it wasn't far off. So relatively happy with how that week has gone. But now what do I do for game week 31? So currently, I don't really have any massive fires. I know Foden's flagged, but I think he probably will end up being okay. And then obviously Saka with his limp, I think he's going to limp on. So Connor Bradley could be a fire with Trent Alexander-Arnold on the bench looming. Palmer, if I was being really fussy, I could take him out for a double game week player, but then I may end up bringing him back in again. And then Darwin Núñez, he does frustrate. I know he's frustrated a lot of people this evening. But do you just keep hopping around strikers, or do you just stick with him and let him do his thing? Because he has got 18 goals, 18 assists for the season. He's right up there for points out of the strikers. Overall, he's the fourth highest scoring striker on the game, just 3 points behind Ollie Watkins. So he is doing the business. He's just a very, very frustrating watch. So this is what my team looks like going into game week 31. Captaincy currently on Haaland. This is without any transfers being made. Connor Bradley, I mentioned him. Palmer, I mentioned him. And Núñez, I've mentioned him as potential moves out. But I'm not entirely convinced about taking any of them out. So Raya, I'm happy with. Aston Villa Bayern. Tough games, but I expect Arsenal to still be quite solid. The same with Gabriel. Virgil, I've got no sort of rotation worries with him, so I'm happy to keep him. The fixtures look alright still. Connor Bradley, I still expect, even with Trent being on the bench, I wouldn't be surprised if Bradley gets the Crystal Palace home match. So I think it isn't the end of the world if I do keep him. Saka, Foden, Kudus, Palmer, they all have decent enough fixtures, and you'd expect most of them to play twice. Palmer's obviously got the one game, but I wouldn't be that surprised if Foden does get Luton and Real Madrid. And then Nunes, Crystal Palace at home, Atalanta away. They're going to be chasing goals in that second match, and Nunes can deliver, and Haaland and Salah stay. So I don't think there are really big issues. I'd like to get Kevin De Bruyne in, like I mentioned. It's just who for. I could do it for Palmer. I've got 3.4 million left in the bank. I could hope to get 2 fixtures from Kevin De Bruyne, and a worst case, maybe I just get the 1. And that way I haven't really lost out. So that could be a potential move. Maybe Palmer to Kevin De Bruyne. I don't really want to lose double Liverpool attack, so happy to keep with Nunes and Salah. Could it just be replacing Bradley potentially? I'm not sure who with at this point, and getting KDB in. I think going for Trent Alexander-Arnold could just be too early. If I bring Trent in now, I still think I'll probably get 1 fixture, the same as Bradley. So it's just whether or not I want to get Kevin De Bruyne in my team. And obviously if I do that, I won't burn a transfer. I will replace Bradley. But I'm just not that sure. I, for the first time, started to think that maybe I could risk not making a transfer and taking free transfers into game week 32. And the reason I like it is because this game week 31, after this, we'll know who's qualified and who hasn't from Europe. So I think that will influence our decision for making future moves quite a lot. And going into game week 32 with free transfers could be helpful with that. But it also could be helpful because there's a lot of differential picks in game week 32 with the likes of Manchester United having good doubles, Chelsea, City, just to name a few. Maybe that extra transfer could pay off then. I'm not so sure. I haven't quite decided. I will decide for our deadline stream on the Dream Team Tonic podcast. We'll be looking for leaks. We'll be answering your questions. So do go over to the Dream Team Tonic podcast. Give a follow over there and look out for our deadline stream. Currently undecided, but KDB is one of the guys I'm going to be sort of tinkering with to try and find a way to get him in. If I don't, or we hear that he's ill or might only play 1 game, maybe I'll just leave Bradley for 1 more week and go into the following week with free transfers. Press conference is tomorrow, so we're probably going to hear something that then appears as a fire, and I'll probably have to make a move there. But currently undecided, torn between maybe rolling a transfer and going with free, or finding a way to get KDB into this team. Let me know if you've got any questions. Happy to answer them in the comments below. Please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you on the deadline stream on the Dream Team Tonic podcast. See you on the next one. Goodbye.